Imagine this. You're standing on a bustling street in the 1920s, where the sharp crack of machine guns echoes through the air, and mafia gangs control everything from bootlegging to human lives. Now, fast forward to the 21st century, where the underworld no longer operates on the streets but hides deep within an invisible web of the internet. Crime today doesn't need bullets or territory. All it takes is a computer and a few lines of code to wreak havoc on an entire economy. From infamous figures like Al Capone to anonymous hackers on the dark web, crime has evolved, transformed, and become increasingly difficult to combat. Are we truly prepared to face these dangers? In today's video, join us as we delve into the evolution of crime over 2 centuries, from machine guns to the dark web, and explore whether the world can turn the tide against these threats. Imagine a world where the incessant roar of machine guns fills the air, blood spills onto the streets, and fear seeps into every corner of society. That was the 20th century, a time when gang crime, especially mafia organizations, not only existed but dominated economic, political, and cultural systems across many parts of the world. Names like Al Capone, John Dillinger, and Lucky Luciano were not just criminals, they became symbols of dark power. The mafia didn't operate in isolation. They were organized like a perfect machine with a tight structure. At the top were the bosses, controlling everything from bootlegging, gambling, to legitimate industries like construction and transportation. They built absolute loyalty by combining financial benefits with harsh punishments, often death, for traitors. The mafia was like a shadow government, with its own laws and power, sometimes surpassing official authorities. Look at the Prohibition era in the US, from 1920 to 1933. The ban on alcohol sales and production didn't just fail to reduce crime, it gave the mafia a chance to rise. Al Capone, one of Chicago's most notorious bosses, built a massive empire by controlling the entire bootlegging market. But Capone wasn't just a criminal, he was a brilliant business strategist. From transporting liquor to building underground distribution networks, everything was done with sophistication and precision. Capone not only controlled the market but also manipulated police, officials, even the courts to protect his power. But it wasn't just about alcohol. The mafia of that era expanded its influence into gambling, prostitution, and transportation. They controlled geographical territories, sharing power with other gangs to avoid conflicts. When necessary, violence was used, but it wasn't mindless violence. Every act had a purpose, from intimidating rivals to consolidating power. For instance, massacres like the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929 weren't just brutal killings but statements. Anyone who opposed the mafia would pay with blood. However, in this picture, we cannot overlook the role of society and the political system of the time. A big question arises. Why could the mafia grow so powerful? Was it due to the government's failure to control society? Or did economic and cultural instability provide fertile ground for their rise? Remember, Prohibition didn't just create a huge black market, it also shook public faith in the legal system. When ordinary people felt that the law no longer served their interests, they turned to alternative solutions, and the mafia was that solution. Another angle worth debating is whether the mafia brought any benefits to society. Yes, they caused violence, intimidation, and exploitation, but at the same time, they provided services the government couldn't or wouldn't offer. In some communities, the mafia was even seen as heroes, protecting locals from other gangs or providing jobs in the industries they controlled. This creates a paradox. They were criminals, yet a segment of the population supported them. Is this a sign of a troubled society? Or does it prove that the mafia understood community needs better than the government? One thing to emphasize is how the mafia controlled information and built their image. They didn't just use violence to seize power but also used media to bolster their position. Al Capone, though a notorious criminal, often appeared in the press as a Robin Hood figure, ready to help the poor during the Great Depression. This wasn't just a publicity stunt but a strategy to build loyalty within the community. It shows the mafia wasn't just strong in violence, but also shrewd in social psychology. But then times change. As the 20th century drew to a close, the mafia began to lose power. FBI campaigns and other law enforcement operations, like Operation Donnie Brasco, exposed the inner workings of these organizations, leading to numerous arrests and prosecutions. The development of surveillance technology and anti-organized crime laws also made it harder for the mafia to operate. Yet, the story doesn't end there. As we step into the 21st century, a new form of crime has emerged, equally powerful and dangerous as the mafia. The difference is, this time, they don't use machine guns or public violence. Instead, they hide behind computer screens, using technology to create a new underworld, where power is no longer limited by geography or borders. Is high-tech crime truly an upgraded version of the mafia? Or is it an entirely new breed of criminality? Stay tuned to find out. If 20th century mafia ruled the streets with machine guns and underground laws, the 21st century opens a surprising new chapter, where the invisible enemy doesn't need guns or gangs but only a computer connected to the internet. High-tech crime, with the dark web, cryptocurrency, and artificial intelligence, has not only changed the methods but expanded its influence globally. Think about the dark web, the shadowy side of the internet. It's not just a black market, it's a complex ecosystem of crime. On anonymous forums, you can find anything: personal information, bank data, hacking software, or even hired assassins. The dark web allows criminals to transact easily using cryptocurrency without ever meeting face-to-face. With tools like the Tor browser, they leave almost no trace behind. The biggest change lies in how these criminals operate. If the mafia had to build loyalty over years, today's high-tech crime organizations can assemble strangers from across the globe to carry out a cyber attack within hours. Take ransomware, for example, a type of crime that doesn't require large gangs but causes billions of dollars in damage every year. These hackers can infiltrate hospital systems, banks, or major corporations, encrypt all their data, and demand a ransom for its release. The 2021 Colonial Pipeline attack, which left the US grappling with fuel shortages in just a few days, is a prime example. But what makes high-tech crime truly dangerous isn't just the tools they use, it's their absolute anonymity. Unlike the mafia, they don't face direct threats, don't need to control territories, and aren't subject to competition from rival gangs. Instead, they operate in a virtual space where the law is often slow to catch up. This invisibility makes them much harder to track down compared to the mafia bosses of the past. A compelling question arises: can we consider high-tech crime an upgraded version of the mafia? Some argue yes, as it still exploits the vulnerabilities of society, from cybersecurity gaps to human ignorance. On the other hand, it doesn't rely on violence or loyalty to sustain itself. This is the biggest difference, and the reason why it's even more terrifying. It doesn't need human factors to survive. However, high-tech crime isn't without weaknesses. Despite their anonymity, they still depend heavily on technology platforms and cryptocurrencies. And just as the mafia was eventually toppled by society's tools of control, can technology once again become the weapon to defeat these criminals? This leads us to the next chapter, where the intervention of law and global cooperation will take center stage. Technology isn't just a weapon for criminals, it's also the shield of law enforcement agencies. But the key point is that, in this race, the side that harnesses technology faster will gain the upper hand. If the 20th century mafia was dismantled through new investigative methods like wiretapping by US authorities, in the 21st century, technology has turned the battle into something far more complex. Today's investigative agencies use artificial intelligence, AI, to detect suspicious transactions on the dark web, trace cryptocurrency flows, and prevent cyber attacks before they cause significant damage. AI can analyze millions of transactions in seconds, uncovering links that humans could never identify. Some systems can even predict potential attacks by analyzing hacker behavior. This is something traditional investigators during the mafia era could never have dreamed of. But is technology truly the ultimate weapon? Consider deepfake technology, capable of creating shockingly realistic fake voices and images. A criminal could produce a fake video of a corporate leader instructing employees to transfer millions of dollars. AI, developed to protect people, has now become a powerful tool in the hands of criminals. This raises an unsettling question: are we becoming overly reliant on technology, only for it to turn against us? This dependency also leads to another issue. Who controls the technology? Powerful surveillance tools can help stop crime, but they are just as easily abused to infringe on privacy. Some worry that, in the fight against crime, we are sacrificing personal freedoms. So, does technology truly help humanity protect itself? Or is it just a double-edged sword, sharp but dangerously unpredictable? If 20th century mafia left law enforcement struggling with overt violence, 21st century high-tech crime poses an entirely different challenge. It's invisible. Laws, traditionally built on concepts like geography and jurisdiction, now face a world where criminals are no longer confined by borders. A hacker in Eastern Europe can attack a hospital system in the United States within minutes, and that's when the law often finds itself powerless. Consider this. When a cybercrime group conducts transactions on the dark web using Bitcoin, how can the police trace them? Even if the attacker's identities are uncovered, extraditing them to face trial becomes a daunting task. Many countries lack extradition treaties or are simply unwilling to cooperate, especially when the crime didn't affect their territory. However, the law isn't entirely powerless. Many nations and international organizations have started collaborating to address these challenges. For instance, operations by Interpol and Europol have successfully dismantled several major criminal networks on the dark web. Yet, these campaigns often require significant time and resources, as cybercriminals are almost always one step ahead. This raises a critical question. Can the legal system innovate fast enough to keep up with high-tech crime? Or will we always be chasing their lead? When high-tech crime transcends all borders, one thing becomes clear. No country can tackle it alone. But global cooperation, an ideal-sounding solution, faces countless obstacles. Are nations willing to share sensitive data and coordinate actions when national interests sometimes conflict? This is the critical challenge in the fight against 21st century crime. Consider some successful international operations. In the Operation Trojan Shield, the FBI worked with over 10 countries to dismantle a global criminal network by tricking criminals into using a messaging app controlled by the FBI. The result? Hundreds of arrests and millions of dollars seized. However, achieving this required years of planning and convincing nations to collaborate. Yet, cooperation isn't always smooth. Some countries refuse to assist, fearing it might strain diplomatic ties with nations where criminals are based. Worse still, some countries view hackers as national assets, covertly supporting them to undermine rival systems. This raises a major question. Can we build a truly effective global cooperation system? Or will cybercriminals continue exploiting these divisions to dominate the digital realm? This isn't just a fight against crime. It's the ultimate test of global unity. From the violent world of 20th century mafia to the invisible crimes of the 21st century internet, one thing is clear. Crime will never stop evolving. But the question is, can we evolve fast enough to protect ourselves? If you found this story intriguing and full of fresh perspectives, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss out on more exciting content. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think we are winning this battle? Thank you, and see you next time.